Hi everyone. Today we're going to be going over how to add and manage users on your WordPress website. So we're starting off in the back end of our WordPress site, and we're going to go over to the sidebar, hover over where it says users, and we're going to start off with all users. So this is a list of all the users that are currently on your website, and users can be created in a couple different ways. So as an administrator, you can create a user from the back end, and you can create them by either clicking Add New, hovering over the New section up top and clicking User, or by clicking Add New in the left sidebar after you hover over Users. So users can also be created on the front end of your website. So depending on the type of website that you have, you may have a section of your website called Create an Account or Login, where people can create their own users from the front end. And in the settings of your website, which we'll discuss at a later time, you can assign what the default role is when a new user is created, whether you want to give them basic levels of access to your website all the way up to becoming an administrator on your website. But that's something that we're going to discuss in a later video. But starting from the back end, you'll see from the list of users, you will see the username of each user, their full name, their email address, their role as a user, and how many posts is attributed to each user. So we'll start off by looking at this test customer that we set up, and you have three options. You can view the specifics of a customer on the front end of a website, and it doesn't really show you too much. It shows you the user's profile if someone were to ever go to this URL, and in this case it just redirected us to the shop. You can delete a user, or you can edit a user's assigned settings. So in this case, we'll click on Edit, and we'll take a look going from the top down. So you can change the color scheme of a user that they see when they log into the back end of the website. You can enable keyboard shortcuts. Typically, you can ignore that. You can toggle whether or not you want them to see the admin bar when they're on the website. Here is their assigned username, and like you see here, usernames cannot be changed once they're assigned. We'll show you how to assign a username a little bit later in this video. You can change the role of a customer or a user, and the roles basically assign what parts of the website someone can access or not. So a customer and a subscriber can both only access the front end of the website. They can't access the back end here. A contributor can log into the back end of the website, but can only access things like posts and media. An author and an editor can adjust things like, in addition to the posts and media, they can also have access to the pages section, the comments section. If someone was a shop manager, they would also have access to the WooCommerce section and product section, which we set up from a separate plugin. And the administrator has access to everything on the site. You also have the option to not assign a role, but typically when creating a user, you do want to set a role so that permissions are set up depending on how much you want the user to access on your site. So in this case, our test user is only a customer, so they don't have access to the back end like we do. They can only access the front end. And this is the default we set up for any users that sign up for our website. So continuing down, you can change the first name and last name of the user. You can assign and change a nickname for the user. The nickname is just another naming option for an account, and you'll see here that display name publicly as. You can choose their first name, their last name, a combination of both, or their nickname. So the display name publicly as is typically seen when you post a blog and it'll show the author, or you publish a page and it'll show in the back end. That's when that really comes into play. The contact info, everybody needs an email. You can change the email here, and if you change the email, it'll send a verification email to your email to confirm that you changed it. If your user has a website they want to include, they can include that here. They can choose a bio, they can add a profile picture, and they can add a billing and shipping address if they have WooCommerce installed. We're going to be discussing WooCommerce in a later video, and why we set it up and what it does. The final thing when it comes to managing a user is you can generate a new password for the user. So if a user forgets their password and you want to create a password for them, you can generate the password by clicking generate, and it'll show you the password, and it'll provide you one by default, but you can put in a custom password here. And just make sure whatever changes you make in the user section that you're going all the way to the bottom and clicking update. So that's if you want to edit an existing user. If you want to add a new user, we'll click on the add new user, and this is just the basic layout when you're starting. So we'll assign a username for the user. We'll call it test user 2. The email will be test2test.com. Test user. So when creating a new user on your website, you have two options when it comes to the password. If you click show password, you can auto create a password like before, and you can create the password for a new user. But if you want them to create their own password and you just want to send them an email saying your account's been made, here's a link to create a new password, you can just skip over this and have the user send a user notification, and the user will get an email saying your account's been created, add your password, and they'll be able to set that themselves. And finally, before adding the new user, you want to assign a role to them. In this case, we're going to assign customer because it's an entry-level account, and we'll click add new user. And now you'll see that our test user number 2 is here with all their information. And then once the user gets the email saying that their account's been created and they set up their password, then they can log into the website with whatever permissions they have. Finally, the last part of managing users is your own profile. So you can really access your own profile by either finding yourself in the user list, or you can click your profile under users, and this will allow you to adjust anything that's specific to your account. You can adjust your password, your username, your email, anything that we discussed when we were managing the first test user. And that's how you would add and manage users on your WordPress website.